Super Draco, and we're back for part 4 of Build Optimus Prime. So we're going to continue the head with parts TR1-24 and 25. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to slot that rubber piece over that ball to create a ball socket joint. I've said balls way too many times in a short time frame. Anyway. So then we're going to bring in parts TR-122 and 23. And those are going to sandwich around the ball joint. So I'm just double checking the proper alignment because with this being a ball joint and being a moving part, you don't want it incorrectly assembled because that's going to affect your movement. Okay, and now this section is going to be held together with two screws called TR-1-33 with a nut called TR-1-34 and haha balls, nuts, yeah. See a couple of hex-shaped slots. And so the nuts are going to fit into those. And so what we're going to do is the screw will go in from the other side. Now you can see I've just got my finger over it to hold it in place. Once the screw bites into the nut, that's an interesting phrase to say, it'll pull it tighter as we tighten the screw. And so that's the first one. So then we go to the other side. Just make sure we're dropping it in the right on the right socket, and that it's actually laying properly. That's why it's always good to have a magnetic screwdriver, so you can just use the magnet to pull it or move it around if it isn't right. Now I know you can't see this, but I mean, if you watched any of my other videos like Bismarck or Ecto 1, I don't think you need a nice in-shot view of a screw being screwed with a screwdriver. And I've just said screw a lot to go with balls and nut. Man, I am a child. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to insert part TR-1-30 into that large socket. Now that is a tight fit. And so we're going to set that to the side, and we're going to grab Assembly D that we did all the way back in stage 2, I believe. Which in all honesty isn't quite that long. But anyway. So then we're going to bring in part TR-1-26-2, which is this double-ended cable. And so that cable is going to plug into the socket on that circuit board. You always want to make sure you have the pins oriented the right way before you just start jamming things in there and ruin them. Man, this is an innuendo-laden video even by my standards. Probably should apologize for that, but I'm not going to. Anyway, and then we're going to move on to the next assembly. So we're going to take circuit board TR-1-27. That has the LEDs for the eyes, and then that's going to mount behind the face with a single black PWB screw. So there's a hole in the middle. So you just want to make sure it's seated properly. Now with that wire trailing off, it's really not going to. Now, again, same mistake I've been making most of this. You're supposed to use a black PWB screw instead of one of the silver screws. I do correct this later. Again, I do go back and make sure I use the correct screw in every one. Okay, and so then, now that we've got that attached, we're going to take the assembly with the neck ball joint, the assembly with his face, and then that's going to attach together using parts TR-1-50 and 3 black PWB screws. So we're going to jump ahead to me having deciphered what the instructions are showing. So now that I've got it vaguely lined up, I'm going to get 3 screws and try to attach it together. I honestly don't think this is quite as difficult as it seems. I'm entirely willing to believe I'm just a dumbass. Now, one thing we want to make sure of is that as we're attaching this together, none of these wires are smushed or being mashed or caught up in anything. Again, using the wrong screw. This is the video where I actually realize my mistake and start correcting this. But once we have the first screw in and the parts start lining up, this gets a lot easier. So we're going to flip the head over, and on the other side we're going to attach part TR-1-51 with 3 more PWB screws. It fits on an exact mirror of the other side, but since we already have the other side on, and so I actually know what I'm doing this time, so there's not going to be near as much struggling.
You didn't see anything.
I told you that I would eventually realize I messed up, and so you see here are the black PWB screws. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically at this point going to start replacing the silver screws and correcting this. Now, right now I'm just continuing the assembly with it because I don't, basically I'm just being hard-headed, thinking maybe I don't need those silver screws which I eventually do. So we're going to cut till after I'm done fixing this. Okay, so now that we're back, so what we've got here is we're going to feed the wires. Now the wire for the eyes, you're going to feed it over the top of the head. It's going to go through a small socket, and then you're going to clip it in under those clips alongside the thing that the neck joint is attached to. And you're going to do that with both of the wires, the light for the eyes and the motor for the mouth. And there's another pun in there about motor mouth, but we're going to go with it. No more ADD for this. Although I haven't used the meme yet, so... Anyway, now this isn't the easiest thing in the world to do, especially when you have big fingers like I do. But just be careful and don't be rough with the wires. You don't want to break them, because once this is all sealed up, you're kind of stuck. So that's the wire for the motor on the, I guess we'll call it the right for right now. Now, you don't want it to be tight. You want there to be a little bit of give in it, a little bit of slack, so that you can move the head around without fear of snapping that wire. So now here's the wire for the light for the eyes. As we can see, I'm going to feed it around that one post where one of the screws is holding that whole assembly together, and then we're going to do just like the eyes. And make sure it's up under those clips. But again, you don't want it super taut, because you don't want to be pulling on this wire and damaging the wire or the circuit board. So as you can see, the ball joint will move. And now that we've got that done, we've got one more thing to do. There's a screw and a bolt that's going to secure everything in place. So to make this easy on myself, what I did is I put the screw all the way in, and so instead of having to drop the nut down the hole and hope that it stays oriented properly, I was able to literally just rest it on the end of the screw, and then through physics and simple pressure, by turning the screw, and I threaded the nut onto it. Until then I could hold the nut with my finger so it can't retreat outward, and literally turning the screw would turn the nut tighter. I don't think that statement made any sense, but if you try it yourself, you'll figure out what I'm talking about. But with that done, we're going to move on to the next step. Next, we need parts TR1-02 and then 2 TR-1-14s. So the the 14s basically are going to drop in and go through those round openings to give Optimus Prime the back of his head the bolt detailing. They can only fit one way. And it's just that easy. So then we're going to take the back of the head and just attach it to our assembly like so. And then that's going to be held down with 4 of the black PWB screws. Then we're going to bring in the top of the head. I don't recommend you dropping yours like I did mine. And then we're going to secure the top of the head and the mohawk with 4 PWB screws. And that's going to finish out this video. Okay, and that's all for part 4. So the head's really taking shape. Thanks for watching. Check out my fantasy story on Fiction Press.